Hello and welcome back. If you've seen my previous couple data analysis videos, you might have seen this graph before. If you haven't, this is a graph of what the most skill testing cards in the Vintage Cube are, or at least one way to measure them. There's a full analysis and explanation of what the data is there, but really what this is, what I'm looking at is these cards up here in the top left are quite significant outliers in terms of the good players win with them a lot more than the bad players. Like Yawgmoth, all players are winning 2.77 wins out of 7 on average. The top players are winning 4.12 on average with Yawgmoth. Knight of the Reliquary goes from 2.81 up to 4.35 on average. So we kind of want to just get a sense of what are the top players doing with these cards, and seeing if we can get any insights from that. So I did Seething Song in the last video, and it was actually pretty interesting. So we're going to look at a couple of these in this video. So these are the cards we'll be looking at today: Yawgmoth, Knight of the Reliquary, Ulvenwald Oddity, Scavenging Ooze, Liliana the Veil, and Recurring Nightmare. And let's just get into it. If you haven't seen my data analysis videos before, 17 Lands released the full data, the best data we've ever had on any type of Vintage Cube format at all. Worth mentioning, this data set comes from the Arena Cube, so it's not necessarily 100% applicable to every cube environment because the cards will be different, but you can still get general broad trends on what cards are being played with what. A lot of cubes tend to have like Knight of the Reliquary, Yawgmoth, Scavenging Ooze type decks. So this can give us some insights. The one that I was most curious about was Knight of the Reliquary. And I'm not going to explain this too much, but if you want to see more breakdown of what I'm measuring here, go watch the other couple of videos. But basically, I'm measuring how synergistic cards are with Knight of the Reliquary. And synergistic is measured by how often they show up together, and when they show up together, how often they improve the win rate. It is worth mentioning that the top synergistic cards don't necessarily mean this is the best thing to be doing with Knight of the Reliquary. It just means decks that want to be doing this thing with the Knight of the Reliquary really need these key cards. So like, it's pretty clear from these couple cards that lands deck with Knight of the Reliquary, if you're using lands as your payoff, you really want to have a lands payoff. So Thespian Stage Dark Depths. That doesn't mean that Thespian Stage Dark Depths Knight of the Reliquary has the highest win rate though. It just means these are, in the decks that care about it, these are a key card. And then the anti-synergy is sort of the opposite. So decks that think they care about these cards, it actually makes them lose more. So like playing Rafellos in Knight of the Reliquary, huge anti-synergy, more than any other card. Interestingly, Elvish Reclaimer, also anti-synergy. And it seems like Vampire Hexmage, not nearly as good as just naturally playing the lands. Also anti-synergy there. So that's what that's going for. And we can see kind of what we would expect: lands, Fast Bond, Crucible of Worlds. Natural Order is kind of cool. Reclamation, Stage Exploration, Crop Rotation. So the decks that are playing Knight of the Reliquary to do lands things care about those things. Couple outliers: Adeline Resplendent Cathar definitely suggests that there's an aggro deck somewhere in here, just like green-white aggro. And then Vindicate also suggests like a Abzan aggro deck too. So yeah, we can just look at the clusters. So wow, there's a lot of variation here. 2 clusters, 3 clusters are performing like really well. This one is going crazy. If you build it right anyway. So baseline deck performance. So again, if you haven't seen this graph, quick explanation: the blue line is how well Knight of the Reliquary is performing in all decks. And then I measured basically high synergy decks, which is decks that get 75% more of the high synergy cards that their archetype cares about than the other decks. So all decks is just every deck in that archetype. High synergy decks are decks in that archetype that get most of the cards that that archetype wants. Basically, this is a deck that got there. So that's what we're measuring. So that's what this graph is showing. Basically, you break down the deck into 8 different archetypes that you can play Knight of the Reliquary in. We use some statistics and clustering to get there. And then within each archetype, this is like the performance variation. And then these are 2 heat maps for each archetype. This is a histogram of how likely the deck is to win. So like this is how many times it got 7 wins: 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So You can see overall, Night of the Reliquary, pretty heavy clustering from 0 to 4 wins. A lot of 0-win Night of the Reliquary decks, surprisingly. This is the high synergy deck, so this is the decks that got there. And it almost looks like a fairly uniform distribution in terms of wins. So not that many losses, a decent amount of wins on these couple clusters, but still a lot in the middle too. So not the best card for sniping wins, but you're not going to lose that much either. And this cluster in particular performed like almost 0, 0, 1, 2, or 3 win decks and a lot of high win decks. So let's see what that cluster is. So yeah, this cluster, there was only 110 decks there. So the highest impact decks means there's only 25 decks that we're measuring here. So this is like the top of the top, and it kind of makes sense because 4.75 average wins is very high. Night of the Reliquary, Temple Garden, Lush Portico, Savannah, Bristly Bill. This just looks like Naya aggro. You've got like Ulvenwald Oddity, Taiga, Skyclave Apparition, Noble Hierarch, Adeline. Yeah, kind of Selesnya, or yeah, Selesnya aggro with maybe a red splash. Really high base win rate, which kind of makes sense. Cluster 2 is Natural Order Raphelos. Raphelos notably having huge anti-synergy. So it seems like the decks that got there are the ones not playing Raphelos. But kind of like a green. Actually, this looks fairly mono green in terms of cards. Yeah, this looks like a mono green aggro deck. When it gets there, it's not terrible. Cluster 1 actually performed quite poorly without much room for improvement either. And this is playing Titania. Maybe Titania, Springheart, Nantuko, crop rotation isn't getting there. And when it does get there, you're playing Strip Mine, Mana Crypt, Llanowar Elves, Expedition map. So kind of more like a mid-rangey green deck that's trying to do some land things, but it doesn't look like it has a ton of land things. So kind of makes sense. There's no room for improvement. This one did really well. Night of the Reliquary, Omnath, Brennan 6. This looks like multicolor aggro. Loot the Pathfinder being very high. Positive synergy is insane. Decks with Loot the Pathfinder on average have a 15% higher average win rate than other decks, which is a huge boost. Decks with Mana Fixing, Bristly Bill, really good in this deck too. So it seems like the best thing to be doing with Night of the Reliquary is aggro, because we have kind of 3 decent aggro archetypes that are performing well, one that's not performing well. Cluster 3 is Strip Mine, Titania, Ramanop Excavator, and baseline performance is not good, but if you turn it more mid-rangey with like Pilgrim, Isika's Chariot, a Mox, Pest Infestation, it performs pretty well, but still worse than the aggro decks. And then this deck has a lot of Strip Mine, Renin 6, so this is more all-in. Strip Mine helps this deck quite a bit, Cluster 6, but it performs much worse than even this deck. So it seems like committing to like a lands type archetype causes the deck to be worse than just playing like Naya aggro, essentially. The last couple archetypes, this appears to be all in lands, so Night of the Reliquary, Crucible, Fast Bond, Strip Mine, Zuran Orb. If you're all in lands, Urza Saga, Dark Depths, Stoic Mycospawn to tutor up the lands, definitely dramatically improve your win rate. But as I was saying, they're very synergistic, so this deck without those doesn't perform well. But with those, the win rate goes up. It's like the 5th best Night of the Reliquary deck, so it's okay. And then Cluster 4, not that many decks here. This is blue, white, green, so like a Bant deck with Strip Mine, Urza Saga, Ice Till. Kind of similar performance. This one appears to be like more green-based, and this is more Bant-based for the deck. And then we can look at a breakdown of how all the cards are performing. So this graph, if you haven't seen it, I'll just quick explanation. The x-axis is how often these cards appear in their key archetypes. So all the way to the right is a card that appears a lot, like Raphelos shows up in a ton of decks, 46% within the clusters. Whereas like Ephemerate, Deathgreater's Champion don't show up that much with Night of the Reliquary. And then the y-axis is what impact this card has on the average win rate when it's put in a deck with Night of the Reliquary. So Raphelos is below this line, so it has a net negative impact on Raphelos overall, or on Night of the Reliquary overall. So, and then the color kind of gives you a sense of how good the card is. So the three cards that are most impactful and improve the deck's win rate: Fast Bond, Strip Mine, Crucible of Worlds. Natural Order, Zurin Orb. Ramanop's fairly neutral. Ice Till's fairly neutral. Renin 6 and Omnath overall decrease the win rate. Same with Titania. Wasteland, Strip Mine, really good with this. Dark Depths, also quite good. Thespian Stage, very high synergy. Savannah, Minskin Boo, very high synergy. Green Sun Zenith, Teferi. So kind of what you'd expect. It's like the green mid-range decks. Like, where is it? Nadu, Springheart Nantuko, Minskin Boo, Sowing Myco Spawn, Loot the Pathfinder, Birds of Paradise, Willow Rush Verge. These cards improve the win rate a ton. Skyclave, Vindicate, Urza Saga, and Adolin. Skyclave Vindicate improved the win rate by like 18% when they showed up in a deck together. Flame Slash as well. So it seems like kind of leaning more into something that's proactive, something that's a little bit aggressive. Definitely improves Night of the Reliquary's win rate. And then cards that show up a lot are putting it in the lands deck, which kind of makes sense. But it's not only good in lands deck if you have fetch lands and stuff like that. It's just a big creature that can tutor up a strip mine when you need it, seems to be the case. And don't play it with Woodfall Primus. Definitely don't play it with Raphelos or Courser of Crufix. And then Vaultborn Tyrant. Yeah, basically don't play it in green ramp. That's, I think, the most big takeaway from this is Raphelos is horrible with this card. So don't play these two together. You want to be playing more cheaper mid-range type stuff. The next on the graph that I was really curious about was Ulvenwald Oddity, because this is a card that shows up sometimes, but I've never been like super excited to play it, and I've never been sad. It's just kind of there, right? So what are good players doing? Lightning Greaves and Zurin Orb, top 2 synergistic. Again, these are just in the archetypes playing these cards. These are the cards that those archetypes want. Also negative synergy with Raphelos. So seems like Raphelos not a very good card. Or at least the archetypes playing Raphelos, like Green Ramp, is just not a good archetype. That could also kind of tell you that. I'm guessing Lightning Greaves mean you're playing it with Nadu, Zurin Orbs, and lands. Oh, Fanatic of Ronas makes a lot of sense with Ulvenwald Oddity, Birds of Paradise, Grist, Prime Time, Gaia's Cradle, Crater Hoof. So just some good old-fashioned green stuff, and then a random Mystic Confluence. Negative synergy, Green Ramp, totally makes sense. Recurring Nightmare is weird. Titania, negative synergy as well. Maybe Titania is not that good in these decks. Nissa Who Shakes the World, anti-synergy. Anti-synergy with Crucible of Worlds and World Spine Worm. That makes sense. Probably if you're trying to natural order or Raphelos into a World Spine Worm, deck's not performing that well. But holy cow. Wait, this card's insane. 4.92 average wins. Look at all of the good decks running Ulvenwald Oddity actually have insane base win rates. Just for reference, all of these average number of wins are better than the best Tolarian Academy decks. The baseline is lower, but a good Ulvenwald Oddity deck slaps, except for deck number 4. We'll figure out what that archetype is, but man, does that deck love to go 1 or 2 win drop. But these archetypes are crushing it. So what are these archetypes? The best one, Minskin Boo, Bloodbraid Elf, Taiga. So like green-red aggro, and All In is the deck when it gets a Mox or a Black Lotus or a Screaming Nemesis. Flame Slash also really high synergy here. But yeah, red-green aggro with Minskin Boo, Taiga, that kind of thing, absolutely slaps. 4.92 average wins that's on par with Boros, like the best Boros decks. That's really, really good. That's one average win higher than the best Tolarian Academy deck. So Ulvenwald Oddity, kind of crushing it. This one appears to be Selesnya, green-white. Yeah, highest impact with Knight of the Reliquary, Pest Infestation, Scavenging Ooze, Temple Garden. So this is what the good players are doing with this deck, is just running green-white aggro. This archetype also slaps. 4.71 average wins. And they're just playing good aggressive things, right? Like good fixing, Temple Garden Savannah, Razorword's Thicket, Hushword Verge. And then they just get like Solitude, Pest Infestation, Scavenging Ooze. Knight of the Reliquary having really high impact with Ulvenwald Oddity is really interesting. And then Cluster 3 also crushing it. This is red-green, very similar to this one, but this has more of a lands theme because you have Renin 6 plus Bristly Bill, Keen-Eyed Curator, that kind of thing. But similar type of archetype red-green aggro. Like I said, these decks exist on a continuum, so some of them are going to overlap quite a bit. This one is Nadu, Oko, aggro again, 4.62. So also really good in blue-green. With your playing Nadu, Uro, Oko, Scythecat Cub, there's the Mystic Confluence. And Urza, okay. So just playing all of the big chunky hitters, right? You're playing some good interaction, Daze, Urza, Mystic Confluence. You're playing Oko, Uro, Nadu, and it doesn't appear like this is like an all-in Nadu deck. It just appears like this is just good cards, and then maybe you have some Nadu combo, but like highest impact isn't showing Lightning Greaves or anything. It's just blue-green beatdowns, crushing it. Next up, Guy's Cradle. This is just mono green. And Lightning Greaves, really high synergy, even though this isn't the blue-green deck. That's really interesting. Portal to Phyrexia. Hardcast Portal to Phyrexia. In a green deck. You know, it's working. It's working for him. Sylvan Safekeeper, I'm guessing to go with... there's got to be Nadu somewhere in here, but it's not high impact in this deck anyway. Primetime, really high impact. So mono green aggro can work. You apparently just want Lightning Greaves and a Portal to Phyrexia. Cluster 5, also the best decks are crushing it. Titania, Surrock, Fabled Passage, Birds of Paradise, Leovold. This is green-black. So green-black aggro also working. Leovold Sultai, I guess. So, yeah, just as long as you're being proactive, it doesn't seem to matter what you're doing. You just need to play, like, good threats. And I think the key takeaway here, we'll see what number 4 is. This is just green-black with the best decks are running Deep Cavern Bat, Titania, Tameo, Sowing Myco Spawn, Ulvenwald Oddity, and then lands. So this appears to be very land-heavy. Either way, not a very winning archetype. And then the last one is the lands archetype itself. And it looks like, you know, you're trying to Demonic Tutor to fill out your lands deck. Fast Bond, Ice Till. The worst performing deck besides this one, which I can't really infer what this one is. But this one's a pretty clear archetype. You're playing lands with Ulvenwald Oddity. The worst performer. So I think the takeaway here is Ulvenwald Oddity absolutely slaps if you're playing it in a proactive deck. And it doesn't really matter what the colors are because we saw red-green was good. We saw Sultai was good. We saw green-white was good. We saw green-blue was good. Green-black does appear to be bad. That's what Cluster 4 looks like, or like Jund, but I don't know. There's only 77 decks in this cluster, so it could be noise. I don't know too much what to infer from that one. And then here's our synergy graph for Ulvenwald Oddity. Best pairing Minsk and Boo. Big surprise there. Next best pairing Titania, Birds of Paradise, Taiga, Gaia's Cradle, Bloodbraid Elf, Noble Hierarch. So yeah, ramp, Parallax Wave, ramping out some big creatures. Let's like zoom in on here. There's so much clustering here. Questing Beast, Fanatic of Ronus, Lelia, Rumble, Grist. So this is Green Sun Zenith, Oko. This is definitely telling us a lot about the deck and synergies. Really confused by this Lightning Greaves, though. I don't know what's going on there. Solitude really boosts the win rate. Wasteland helps a lot. Strip Mine helps a lot. Primetime, great positive synergy. Not many people playing Primetime these days, but maybe you should be. Yeah, just... I think the key is to play mid-range decks. What are the anti-synergy cards? Raphaelos. Nadu has anti-synergy. That's interesting. Played a lot and generally decreases win rate. Good to know. Natural Order has a net positive synergy score, but net negative win rate impact. So it's good in some decks, but overall not good. Nissa Who Shakes the World, negative synergy. That's interesting. Containment Priest. Broadside Bombardier's negative synergy. That's very surprising. Crucible has negative synergy. I'm really surprised Elder Gargoth is just not doing it. Archanautics Engineer, Elspeth, Worldspine Worm, negative synergy, not surprised there. The worst card is Bone Shards for some reason. The best card, Mystic Confluence, although not played together that frequently. But really, I think the takeaway is just red, green, white, and or blue mid-range slaps. Next up is a card that I'm very curious about, which is Yawgmoth Thran Physician. Um, Top 15 synergistic cards: Bleachbone Verge, Elegy Acolyte, Outland Liberator, Intrepid Adversary, Lingering Soul, Survival of the Fittest. Okay, these are cards that I like nobody plays in Vintage Cube, so it's really cool to see this being synergistic with those. Jadar, Ghoul Caller of Nephalia, Grist, that kind of thing. Anti-synergy with Kolaghan's Command, Mosswood Dread Knight, White of the Reliquary, Vindicate. Okay. I feel like this is one we're just going to have to see the archetypes. Okay. There is a couple Yawgmoth archetypes that are crushing it. Holy cow. This could be small sample size. How many decks do we have in that cluster? I just got to go to it. Cluster 7 has 54 decks. So, this peak right here is like 15 decks, kind of. So there is a little bit of not enough data because not that many people play Yawgmoth. But the people that do play Yawgmoth are absolutely killing it. Look at this. Look at this distribution at 7 wins. A lot of distribution at 2 and 3 as well. So kind of high variance builds right here. But let's get into it. Yawgmoth, Caustic Bronco, Dark Covenant, Skullclamp, Concealed Courtyard, Scrubland. Okay, so this is like black-white tokens, kind of, with Jadar having really high positive synergy. That's cool. Next we have Vindicate, Elegy, Acolyte, Preacher to the Schism, Godless Shrine. Elegy, Acolyte, really high positive synergy. This is more like controlling, it seems, and that's, I mean, like, look at that. Elegy, Acolyte, when it's in the same deck as Yawgmoth, it adds 19% win rate. So, like, almost all of this high impact stuff is explained by having Elegy Acolyte and some good fixing, essentially, which is absolutely nuts. Cluster 0, also crushing it. This is very similar black-white tokens, right? You can see Scrubland, Shadowy Backstreet, Lingering Souls. A little bit more removal heavy this time, but it seems like we don't have enough data for that many archetypes, so it might just be that these are kind of one archetype that should have clustered into one. This is black-red. Really good with Lelia, Dreams of Steel and Oil. Grave Titan, positive synergy here. Cluster 2. Also crushing it, black-red Yawgmoth. Blue-black Yawgmoth has synergy with Bayou, so it seems like adding green can help, but blue-black Yawgmoth also kind of crushing it. This is the worst performing cluster, cluster 5, but it's only 29 decks. This one has Elegy Acolyte as well. Might have to see this build because this one's not performing very well, but it's also black-white. This could be noise in the data because there's only 29 decks in this cluster. That could have just been like there's not enough data here to fill out 8 things in the cluster. This is playing Yawgmoth in Reanimator, cluster 4. Decent peak performance, but worse than just the average black-white tokens Yawgmoth deck. And then this is kind of like a green-black recurring nightmare build. Also middling performance. So there's some noise in this data, but I think the takeaway is just black-white tokens with Yawgmoth really good. Elegy Acolyte kind of insane with Yawgmoth, if I'm being honest. If you're like me, I had no idea what Elegy Acolyte was, so this is the card that has the best synergy with Yawgmoth. 4/4 lifelink. When one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. And then at the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell is warped, make a 2/2 robot creature. So this gives you creatures with Yawgmoth, the lifelink offsets the life loss. Kind of makes sense. And then you can just keep sacrificing stuff or hitting opponents to draw cards. Kind of makes sense. You just have these 2 4-mana black cards that let you get card draw off of your tokens and let you kill stuff with tokens. And if your tokens die, you just keep getting more tokens. Seems like a cool build. So here's our more telling like cluster plot of Yawgmoth. Really bad with Path to Exile, apparently. Played together a lot. But you gotta look at, there's not that many total decks with Yawgmoth, but it's definitely bad with Persist, Vindicate, Kolaghan's Command, Luminarch Aspirant. Bleachbone Verge, very high synergy. Seems like fixing is very important. Guide of Souls makes sense. Ocelot Pride. Lingering Souls, Ajani, Voice of Victory. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Attack and then sacrifice the tokens. Lelia, Strip Mine, Wasteland, Creeping Tar Pit. There's Elegy Acolyte. So kind of in the middle of frequency played. But the decks that really want it, I guess, really like it. Snuff Out Grief. Yeah, so kind of what you expect. Black-white tokens. Fury has positive synergy. All the evoke elementals, you can like evoke an elemental and then sack it to Yawgmoth is kind of sick. Good with Emperor of Bones too, for a similar reason. Barrowgoyf, Grave Titan, just like a... I've been saying this forever, but it's just the proactive cards are crushing it. The cards that you can just play and get value off of and be proactive with. Mother of Runes, really good synergy too. That's what you want to be doing with Yawgmoth. Like all the pitch elementals having high synergy and being right next to each other is kind of cool. Grief, Solitude, and Fury all working well. Yeah, just play those. Don't play Reprieve. Staff of the Storyteller having negative synergy is interesting. And Pest Infestation too. That's actually very surprising to me. But it's only in 20 decks, so hard to get too much information out of that. Swords to Plowshares negative synergy too. Maybe people are playing too much removal because Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Kolagon's Command, like a lot of the removal has negative synergy with Yawgmoth. Because I guess Yawgmoth itself is removal. That could make sense to me. Alright, next up is Scavenging Ooze. The top cards, synergistic, Craterhoof Behemoth, Guy's Cradle. This is a card that's actually synergistic with Mosswind Dread Knight. Lightning Greaves, Titania. I feel like anti-synergy with Nadu, positive synergy with Lightning Greaves. That's very interesting. This is like the second card we've seen. It seems like Lightning Greaves is just good in a green deck. I don't entirely know, but it kind of makes sense, right? You could play this and it becomes like a 5/5 with haste. Synergy with Ouroboros. Maybe Lightning Greaves Ouroboros is something. Screaming Nemesis, Zurin Orb, Parallax Wave. Okay. And then anti-synergy with Nadu, anti-synergy with Lava Stern Boots, positive synergy with Lightning Greaves. Very interesting. Natural Order, not so good. Alright, I gotta see. Yeah, it's winning. It's not the best deck we've seen, but it's at least the peak decks are averaging at least as good as like Tolarian Academy is, if that tells you anything. These two archetypes in particular have like this is why the histogram is useful because this tells you like what the average win rate is, right? But if you look at cluster 0, it's mostly middling win rates, whereas cluster 6 has higher peak win rates. Like you have way more 7-win decks in these clusters in the best decks. So like it seems like these are more powerful and this is kind of more middling but consistent. So the two kind of most powerful decks are Minsc Boo, Taiga, aggro, with Comet, Stellar Pup, Screaming Nemesis, Mox Pearl. Positive synergy with Detectus Phoenix as well. So yeah, red-green aggro, as we saw with Ulvenwald Oddity, kind of slaps. This one appears to be green-white aggro, Sentinel, Pest Infestation, Ulvenwald Oddity, hey, Elite Spellbinder, Ajani, Asika's Chariot. So green-white aggro actually performing better than green-red aggro when you're playing Scavenging Ooze. And again, looking at the histogram, these decks are getting 7 wins a lot. So green-white, green-red seem to be the way to do it. This appears to be mono-green with Natural Order Craterhoof. And that one, not nearly as good peak performance. This is Nadu. And it seems like it's better when you're playing it just as blue-green control with Jite, Force of Will, that kind of thing. This is the one that had anti-synergy with Nadu, right? This is kind of all-in green-blue Nadu, and that's cluster 1. This is the lowest deck peak performance, so seems like it's not a good archetype to go all in on. Green-black stuff, cluster 5, reasonable performance. This is more lands, cluster 0. So a good lands deck actually does come together if you get like Ancient Tomb, Mana Crypt, Demonic Tutor, Caracas, and some good fixing. That's kind of cool. Titania, Ice Till, Ramadop, Strip Mine, Bristly Bill, Scavenging Ooze. Looks like it's mono green. I like that a lot. And maybe you're Demonic Tutoring for your Strip Mine, essentially. This is blue-green again, but this one's performing better because they're playing more colors. Hollowed Fountain, Underground Sea, like more fixing and stuff. And it doesn't appear, the other one was all in Nadu blue-green, right? Like Nadu, Springheart on Tuco, Sylvan Safekeeper. It's just like blue-green Nadu. That one performed okay, but blue-green Oko Uro, just more mid-range value, is beating the Nadu deck roughly. They're kind of similar. And then this is kind of 4 or 5 color with Omnath, Loot the Pathfinder, and stuff. Also kind of crushing it. So again, just be proactive. Aggressive green decks do work, and those are the best performing decks. The lands archetypes don't work, and it seems like Nadu is not the best synergy to play towards. Wow, and this deck definitely shows that. Nadu, pretty hefty negative synergy with Scavenging Ooze. Although overall, Scavenging Ooze doesn't have that much synergy, but seems like Minskin Boo, Craterhoof Behemoth positive synergy, Titania, Bristly Bill, Gaia's Cradle. Like you can kind of get a sense of I'm still confused by Lightning Greaves, but it seems like it's good in spite of Nadu. Like you just play it and equip it to like your Titania or something. Bristly Bill maybe, I'm not entirely sure. Death Greeter's Champion. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's crazy. Make like a 6/6 Scavenging Ooze and just get them. Sentinel, Outland Liberator, some really good white cards helping out. Parallax Wave makes a lot of sense. Glorybringer, there he is. Red green, chunky aggro, Pyroglyphs in there. Ocelot Pride, love that. The anti-synergy cards, Cosmogren, Zenith, Oust, Exploration, Reanimate, Trumpeting Carnosaur, 6. 6 is interesting. Maybe 6 is like more mid-range and not so aggressive. Negative synergy with Lightning Bolt Ragavan. Wait, what? Negative synergy with Lightning Bolt Ragavan. Positive synergy with Ocelot Pride, Karakas, Tamio, Goblin Rabblemaster. Oh, Ancestral Recall makes sense. Positive synergy with Jite. Really high positive synergy with Detectives Phoenix in the decks that they come together with. I think this is something we kind of want more data on because this Nadu having anti-synergy could just be like, it could be a skill issue, like people not putting it in there. I only say that because it has really high synergy with Lightning Greaves. But we need to investigate Lightning Greaves next because, like, what is this being played with? Making this good and this not good. That's next on the agenda. Okay, it wasn't originally in the plans, but I added Lightning Greaves into the analysis for this video because I'm just very curious. So yeah, let's go through it. Lightning Greaves, number 1, Nadu. Okay, it's gotta be just noise. Candelabra of Tawnos, number 1 synergistic with Lightning Greaves. Okay, this is really wild. Zurin Orm, Robin Excavator, Green Sun Zenith, Sylvan Safekeeper, Mox Opal, Sentinel of the Nameless City. That's a good card. Archon of Cruelty. Are people reanimating and then Lightning Greavesing an Archon with Persist? Because that's so spicy. There's the Ulvenwald Oddity. Okay, and then Elvish Reclaimer. Man, Elvish Reclaimer must be really bad. It has like really high negative synergy with a lot of stuff. Crucible of Worlds, negative Leovold. What's really interesting is we don't even see Raphaelos here. So it's just not good with Natural Order, not good with Prime Time, not good with Field of the Dead. Very interesting. Oh, okay, but it's winning. Holy cow, is it winning? All of these decks are performing better than Tolarian Academy, by the way. I just want to, at least the best versions of these decks are performing better than the best Tolarian Academy decks. This is 4.59 average wins is actually quite respectable. All of the best Lightning Greaves decks almost have no losses, which is really cool. We'll see how high the sample size is. This does suggest maybe a little bit of low sample size, but that's interesting. Let's see what we got. Oh, very high sample size. Okay. Cluster 3. So not the best one, but definitely in the top. I suspect this one might not have 8 full decks, but we'll get a sense. Lightning Greaves, Nadu, Minskin Boo, Taiga, Sylvan Safekeeper, Pest Infestation, Glorybringer, Mana Crypt, Questing Beast, Zurin Orb. Being very high impact is really wild. I'm guessing this is like a lands, like Teamer aggro deck, and you're playing Greaves plus Nadu. So that one performed okay. Number 2 was Greaves, Nadu, Green Sun Zenith, Springheart, Bristly Bill. And this one's more blue with Time Twister, Mana Drain. Nadu is very high impact in this one. Nadu not being very high impact in this one is interesting. People are just running Lightning Greaves, Minskin Boo, Questing Beast, Glorybringer. Maybe just making it hard for them to kill your big stuff. Interesting. This is the first time I've seen Time Twister appear, which is kind of cool. Time Twister adding 12% win rate to Nadu is interesting. This one, Cluster 1, highest peak performance. Oh, wow. Okay. There is synergy with Rafellos. This is Lightning Greaves, Nadu, Titania. So this is like lands, right? Titania, Ice Tail, Ramanot, Fastbond. So the base win rate's not that good, but whatever the high impact cards are doing, you're running Dismember, you're running Ulamog, Rafellos, Green Sun Zenith, Caracas. This cluster is crushing it. This one is Bant with Teferi Oko. Really good with his Seeka's Chariot, Avacyn's Pilgrim. So again, Nadu is there. This is Cluster 0. This one also winning quite a lot. Cluster 6. This is running Lightning Greaves with Mother of Runes. Not with Nadu, just white. Is this mono white aggro with Mother of Runes? Flicker Wisp, Kellen, Witch Enchanter. Yep. This is Mother of Runes mono white aggro. I think this is probably just getting by on mono white being good. Maybe it's like equipment matters stuff. Here's again Nadu in Sultai. And this deck does well when you have Strip Mine, Black Lotus, and a Barrowgoyf. But even with Strip Mines, Black Lotuses, running Sultai, so much lower performance than straight up blue-green or the other decks. This one, Lightning Greaves and Reanimator, actually kind of doing something. If you get Blood Tithe Harvester, Lightning Greaves, Jace Prodigy, Barrowgoyf. Okay, this kind of makes sense. This is like decks, the all-in Reanimator decks, not performing very well, but the decks that are more mid-rangey and just have a little bit of Reanimate synergy, but then they're running Blood Tithe Harvester, Jace Prodigy, Barrowgoyf, Elegy Acolyte, and just using Lightning Greaves to push tempo are winning. That makes sense. And then this one, Tolarian Academy, Urza, Mox Opal. So you're just running it as an artifact for Urza. And it gets better if you're running Minsk and Boo in your Tolarian Academy decks, but not that much better. So really the takeaway is it's pretty good in mid-range decks, just like a playable card. The thing is though, this could still make the mid-range decks worse. It just means that playing mid-range deck makes Greaves deck better, right? So it could be that like Black-Red Reanimator mid-range with Greaves is winning 4.08. But it could be the decks without Lightning Greaves are winning more. It's just of the Reanimator decks running Greaves, the best ones are the ones that lean more into mid-range. That doesn't mean Greaves is necessarily a good card in those decks. But it is winning quite a lot when paired with Nadu. So I think that's a real archetype. I don't know what's going on with like the Scavenging Ooze stuff. Could have been noise. Hard to say necessarily, but Greaves plus Nadu is good. We'll do Nadu later, I guess, because that'll tell us how good Nadu is in general. Anyone want to take a guess at what this point is? Write down your answers. It's Nadu. That makes sense. Lightning Greaves plus Nadu played together 1,000 times, and it boosts the win rate, but not by as much as you might expect, actually. You can win with Lightning Greaves without Nadu. Tolarian Academy, very high synergy. Sylvan Safekeeper kind of makes sense because you're playing that in a Nadu deck. The highest anti-synergy is Tribal Flames. Guide of Souls, Archon of Cruelty. So it is boosting the win rate of some Reanimate decks because you just get to attack with Archon right away, which is kind of cool, but mostly it's just played in green decks, blue decks. Maybe it kind of makes sense with the Seeka's Chariot, right? Because you play the Chariot, get the 2 tokens, crew the thing, equip Lightning Greaves right to it, get another token right away. Kind of makes sense. It's kind of sick. All right, back on track. Recurring Nightmare, had to see it. Blood Tithe Harvester has a lot of synergy in a lot of the reanimation strategies, so that's just like a kind of cool card in those decks. Overall, it also seems to be Archon of Cruelty, the best one to reanimate. Lingering Souls, Recurring Nightmare is cool. Atraxa, Malevolent Rumble, and Tomb. Natural Order, all the stuff you'd kind of expect. Anti-synergy with Unburial Rites. Anti-synergy with Sneak Attack and Crater Hoof. This is like... if I was in here, I would say this is my fault. I love Recurring Nightmare Crater Hoof. Clearly it's not good. Also not good with Gristlebrand. Gristlebrand must just not be a very good reanimation target. Also anti-synergy with Grave Titan and Primeval Titan. I have also done Recurring Nightmare Prime Time, so maybe maybe that's me. Unfortunately for the Recurring Nightmare believers, the best performance of the best Recurring Nightmare decks is not very good. Um, Peaking around 4 wins, it's just not. It's not the best archetype to be playing. Kind of, they're all probably what you'd expect. Recurring Nightmare and Tomb, Archon, they all have like really similar performance. So there's not even too much deviation between any of them. But I'm just gonna look for any like key things here. Yeah, the trend here seems to be make the deck more aggressive with Pyrogoyf Ragavan to make it better. The trend here seems to be make the deck more proactive with Yawgmoth, Dalthy Voidwalker, Nova Hellkite. Again, the trend here, make the deck less all-in Reanimator and more proactive, run Makti, Elegy, Acolyte, Cut Down. Yeah, all of this is saying make the deck more proactive and less reanimatory, and you'll have a better time, basically. That's what all these highest impact cards are, except for Cluster 6, which is here. This one does have synergy with Animate Dead, but also with Omnath, so I don't know. This is like 4-color Omnath Reanimator stuff going on, but it's not doing that much worse than the rest of them. Uh, yep. Vampire Hexmage, Jite, Atali, Soul Ring, Scythe Cat Cub. So these are more mid-range, but these are performing worse. So yeah, not too many surprises with Recurring Nightmare. It's not that good. And the best way to play it is to basically make your deck more towards a mid-range deck instead of trying to do Recurring Nightmare stuff. So not too many surprises here. Best with Blood Tithe Harvester and Tomb. Overlord of the Mistmoors, Archon, Necromancy, that kind of stuff. Worst with Gristlebrand. Really bad with Gristlebrand, actually. It's very surprising. Bad with Sneak Attack. What is the Reprieve? Very high synergy. Ocelot, Pride, Pyrogoyf. But yeah, again, it's like Lelia, Fable, and Mirrorbreaker. It's like this card is good in decks that are just otherwise good, and this is just a dead draw. Essentially, is kind of what I'm gathering. Like you can make your deck better by. It's good with Flash though. That kind of makes sense. But yeah, you can make your deck better by playing cards that aren't Recurring Nightmare cards. Who knew? Or Recurring Nightmare. All right, last on the list, Liliana the Veil. This is one I was just personally curious on. This is a card that I love, but it just doesn't get played that much. It's good with Entomb, good with Grist, good with Vampire Hexmage, Archon, Blood Tithe Harvester, Animate Dead, Atraxa. So, Sentinel of the Nameless City. Okay, so there's like green-black mid-range that's good with Liliana, and then like obviously Entomb Reanimator stuff. Mosswood Dread Knight appears to not perform well ever. It has a lot of anti-synergy with a lot of stuff. Same with Unburial Rites, unfortunately. I'm very curious who's playing Liliana the Veil in a channel deck, because that's something. Especially in a format that doesn't have Shallow Grave. Like, if you have Corpse Dance Shallow Grave, then there's like a world where this works, but no. it's not working here. She's not doing that well at the peak. Her baseline performance is okay, but like her best deck, 4.14 wins, not that good. Although fairly high clustering at 7 wins for some of these, but then a lot of at 0 wins. So she's really high variance. Let's just look at the clusters. I don't expect too much difference between these. This is black red, and it does better if you put Frog and Fallen Shinobi. So like a Grixis type. Actually, this is more just blue black splashing Fire Covenant, right? This is like a Grixis control-ish. Decent peak performance, but nothing special. This is her in kind of all-in Reanimator. It gets better if you run Vaultborn Tyrant. I'm assuming Flash sometimes shows up here too. Quantum Riddler, that kind of thing. So Cluster 4, worse performance than just playing like a regular mid-range deck. Liliana, black-white. If you add blue, so like Esper. So Esper is kind of the best way to utilize Liliana, it seems. Baleful Strix, Tundra. Like a really fair Esper deck kind of makes sense. This is Liliana in Reanimator again. Even if you're getting the Demonic Tutors, the Black Lotuses, the Mox Emeralds, Cluster 0, you're still just performing worse than just a mid-range deck. Sad to see. Cluster 7. Okay, this is straight up blue-black. Sometimes splashing green for like an Oko, or white for some other interaction. But that deck also not very good. Blue-black in general just underperformed relative to kind of everything else. This is Liliana in kind of worst reanimator, right? You're running life death as your best reanimation target. Kind of makes sense. It performed worse. And then these two were the worst ones, which is Liliana in green black, and Gloomlake Verge, Emperor of Bones. Yeah, these are two like Sultai soup decks, and these do not perform well. The base win rate of this 2 wins on average is so bad. And this one, yeah, also quite bad. Even if you're getting Black Lotus, it's not great. So it kind of makes sense why Sentinel has such high synergy, because Sentinel is just a good card on its own, and that can help boost the win rate, but even that's not enough to save this archetype, unfortunately. So, high synergy cards with Liliana. Entomb, number 1. She's best in like a Reanimator, Entomb, Animate Dead, Archon, Reanimate, Grief, Bloodtithe Harvester, Croxa, that kind of makes sense. She's not very good in a deck with a lot of fixing trying to splash her. Unburial Rites just seems slow. Woodfall Primus, not the best reanimation target. Balance being negative is interesting. Guide of Souls, Wrath of God, Arena of Glory. So the good decks playing her are just running good cards. Shieldred makes a lot of sense. Shieldred just absolutely insane. Demonic Tutor, Staff of the Storyteller, Outland Liberator, and the worst card is Tendrils of Agony. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't play Tendrils in your Liliana deck where you make yourself discard cards. Surprise. But the best use for her, at least the most frequent use for her, is in Tomb Reanimate stuff. Hey, and if you like the way I talk about card games, play card games, or if you like just how much depth I'm willing to go into analyzing card games, you might be interested in a card game that I designed. So Algomancy is a card game that I spent 3 years of my life designing, and I put a lot of effort specifically into making sure to solve some of the key problems that many card games run into. So the one I'm most excited about is you can play Algomancy getting a cube draft style experience with any number of players. So you can do a 1v1 game where you're drafting against your opponent and it works out. Whereas if you're trying to cube draft or like draft something like Magic Gathering, you usually need 6 to 8. So 1v1 cube draft experience is really awesome. The second thing is Algomancy has no first player advantage. So you never have to worry about, oh, I lost the die roll, that made me lose the game or whatever. There's a lot of other really awesome things about the game. If you're interested in go check it out, link in the description. And there's a new expansion coming out, the Algomancy Light and Dark expansion, coming sometime spring 2026. So if you want to support that or support the channel, go follow it on Kickstarter. We're adding 2 new elements to the game, which brings a ton of depth. And I'm very excited about how much depth there is in this expansion. There's a lot of cool things you can do here. I like the way it looks too. So if you're interested in that at all, go check it out. Otherwise, just keep enjoying the videos.